Never done this before.
So did you promote this? How did people get the word out?
Yeah, I scheduled it as an event and then invited people.
Okay.
And it's still not working. I don't know how to do it. Oh, there it goes. Oh, we're live. Okay. Yay. Okay, it's working. We're live. Yay. Okay. This should start going then soon. Why is it not going? Do I need to click a button? Oh, go live. Okay, so many buttons you got to push. Oh my goodness. Okay, we're live. Here we are.
Yay.
Oh, I see. Okay. All right. So apologies for the delay in getting started here. I'm here with Jim Coford. I'm Darren Wirtz. And today we're talking about retirement and exit strategies for law firm owners. So super exciting. Again, this is our first time using the LinkedIn Live. So we had a few bumps in the road, kind of getting it going, but looks like we're rocking and rolling here. So
Well, let's be clear. You had it. I was just along for the ride.
all right, so we're going to talk about how you should think about retirement and exit as a law firm owner, and got some great tips and ideas and strategies for you to think about there. I'm the founder of the Lawyer Millionaire Wealth Advisors, and Jim is our lead planner who works with our law firm owners. Jim, you want to give a quick intro of yourself?
Sure. I have been a certified financial planner for a little over 10 years now. Recently have bolstered that with a couple of extra designations, one specifically around retirement income planning, and another with tax planning. So the two combined with each other, optimizing income in retirement from the resources that you built while keeping an eye towards minimizing your lifetime taxes is what really gets me fired up, gets me out of the bed in the morning.
Cool. All right. Well, without further ado, let's dive in. And if you have questions, I think you should be able to submit those through the LinkedIn somewhere, and I should be able to see them. So we'll see how that goes. Okay, let's talk about the big problems. Okay, what are the big problems? Well, Jim and I, we work with law firm owners, helping them with their retirement and exit planning. And here are kind of the three big problems that we see. Number one, we see a lot of law firm owners who are stuck in the weeds and having trouble making progress in their business. You're still doing client work, you're still doing a lot of admin work, and you're not able to kind of transition out of that into a real business that you could maybe sell one day. And so we want to help you get there. The second big sticking point is I find a lot of law firm owners think they'll never retire. Maybe when they're young, you're right. They're like, oh, I'll never retire. I don't need to retire. I can keep working. And that's all good and well. Maybe you won't ever retire. Okay, great. But here's the thing about that. Retirement isn't about having to retire. It's about having options. And we want to make sure you, as I like to say, have a big bag of money so that you have options. The last area we see a lot of people stuck is they're playing catch up. One of my first law firm owner clients came to me. He was post divorce and building his practice, making pretty good money, but needing to kind of rebuild all of his assets, and in his 50s, right? And so if you're there, hey, you're not alone. It's okay. And those are kind of like three big pain points that we see. Anything you want to add there, Jim?
Yeah, well, I mean, I feel like attorneys in general, my wife is an attorney, and I see plenty of the people that she works with, that we interact with. Everybody seems to be playing catch up to some sort of extent because they come out of law school. Oftentimes they're a little bit older when they go to law school, maybe even late 20s, early 30s. They come out with a large student loan load to manage, and then family happens, the highest spending years. So you get to your late 40s, maybe early 50s, and maybe the retirement savings aren't quite there yet. So yeah, there's everybody's playing catch up.
Yeah, big time. Okay, so those are the problems. Let's see how we're going to solve these problems, right? Before we do that, why plan for retirement? Why? Like, what do we really need to do this? Sometimes law firm owners think we don't really need to do this because I can keep working as long as possible. Well, you say you may want to work forever, but you may think differently down the road. When you're 30 years old, how you think is a lot different from when you're 60. The best time to start planning for retirement was yesterday. The next best time is today, because time is a huge component in this. The earlier you get started making progress towards your goals, the faster you will get there. And it takes a whole lot more work and a whole lot more savings if you get started later in life. And finally, as we mentioned, retirement planning is really about having options. That's what we want to do for you. Okay, so let's dive into it. I want to take you through the 3 steps, 3 areas on retirement and exit planning strategies for law firm owners. Number 1, your financial readiness. We'll talk about determining your wealth gap. Number 2, your firm readiness. What are you going to do with the practice? Assessing your law firm's value and exit options. And lastly, we'll wrap up with personal readiness. All right, let's talk about step 1. Getting financially ready. What do we need to do financially to make sure that we're on track for retirement? I like to call this your wealth gap, determining your wealth gap. Mm-hmm. So how do we get there? Well, 4 steps to get there. Number 1, we really want to define our goals. And that sounds simple, but it's a little bit more complicated than we like to think. Understand your cash flow, estimate how much wealth you need, and then you'll be able to know what is your gap and what we need to do to close that gap. And Jim, feel free to jump in.
Will do.
We want to start by defining your goals. Really, we want to know, what's your current lifestyle? What does your lifestyle need to be in retirement? How much money are you going to need? Cash flow is a big part of this. I found a lot of law firm owners underestimate, a lot of people, let's be real, a lot of people in general underestimate how much they actually spend. I know I do. So we want to think critically. We want to know what your cash flow is today, and then we want to think about what it's going to look like in the future. What does your ideal retirement look like? But also, how are you going to be spending your time, right? What are the things you're going to be doing? Are you going to be traveling? Mm-hmm. What are you passionate about? What gives you a sense of purpose? Where do you want to live, right? Do you have any legacy goals for your kids and things like that? We want to get real crystal clear around these things, because these things are going to tell us how much money you're going to need in the future. A big part of that is understanding your cash flow and tracking your spending. It's really important to know what your personal spending is. And as a business owner, it can get a little bit tricky because you have a lot of expenses, like personal expenses that you may run through the business. For example, maybe your car is owned by the business. And so you're not thinking about that when you look at your budget because your car lease or your car note is being paid by the business. Or your cell phone, right? Your cell phone, you say, well, it's a business expense because I take business calls on it. And so you're not tracking that. You're not being aware of that. So we want to know what the current spending is.
Well, it's also critical to make sure that business and personal expenses are separate. We see that happen a lot, and law firm owners will conflate, to kind of commingle some of their business expenses on their personal, and it's hard to separate them out. So it's essential to have separate accounts for business and personal.
Mixing those 2 things can be very difficult, can make retirement planning very difficult. Then we want to create your retirement budget. So we want to think, look at your current spending, and then how's that going to change? What things are you going to spend more on in retirement? What things are you going to spend less on? Some things will go up, like healthcare, travel, hobbies, and other lifestyle costs. Some things you won't have will be less. Spend less on in retirement. You won't need your fancy suits anymore for going to court or whatever it is, right? And then there's a first gap. Before we get to the wealth gap, there's an income gap. Okay. So once we know what your spending is, we want to, or what your spending will be in retirement, we want to compare that with any income streams you may receive, right? Particularly Social Security. That's probably the one. And there may be some others like annuities or maybe rental income, although I don't like to depend on rental income as a retirement source necessarily, but right. So Social Security will cover some of that retirement expense. And then the rest is your income gap. And where is that going to come from? Where are we going to get the money for that income gap? Jim?
By savings. So we need to make sure that we are earmarking and maxing out our retirement accounts. And for a lot of law firm owners, especially towards latter parts in their career, where they're starting to make real money and getting hit with taxes, there's also some defined benefit programs that we can help implement as well.
So we need to fill that with stream of income from the portfolio. Okay. So one easy way to do this, and this I wouldn't rely on this, but it's a good way to kind of get started, is what we call the 4% rule. It's a great way to kind of ballpark your estimated wealth need. So let's say your income gap is 100,000. So that plus Social Security is going to be what you need to cover your expenses. And your estimated retirement age is 65. So the 4% rule, you take your how much income you need, that 100,000, divide it by 4%, and then that's the wealth that you need. You would need approximately $2.5 million to provide $100,000 a year for the rest of your life, with indexed with inflation. So with the ability to give yourself a raise, each year over time with inflation. Now, it gets a lot more complicated than this. I'm sure Jim has some thoughts on the 4% rule.
Yeah, absolutely. The 4% rule is a great jumping off point, but a lot of times is a little bit low on the estimates of what you're able to afford to spend in retirement.
Yep. Sorry, I had a little bit of interference there with the audio. Okay, so that's one way you can get started. There's a lot more that goes into it with taxes too, because we want to think about where money's coming from, pre-tax IRAs, Roth IRAs, and things like that. But this is a good ballpark for you. Now, here's a little something. Asset allocation really matters when it comes to your income in retirement. You can be too conservative. You need to be somewhat aggressive, not too aggressive, but you want to maintain a good exposure to equities so that you can overcome the inflation hurdle. That's really the biggest thing. So this gives us like the percentage of probabilities, a percentage of success probabilities for different portfolios and then different time frames, right? So typical retired person, you're looking at maybe 20 to 30 years in retirement. If you retire at 65, your life expectancy is 95. You're going to be planned for 30 years. It's looking like kind of your 60-40, maybe 50-50 is a really good portfolio for that.
Interesting. I've never seen this chart before. You got a 99% probability of success with a 10% equity and a 90% bond if your time horizon is 30 years and a 4% withdrawal rate. Interesting.
That's what it looks like, but then it drops off pretty sudden. So
right, suddenly over to zero. That's yeah. It's a big steep drop off there.
I wouldn't rely on that one.
Yeah, that's a pretty interesting some statistics there.
Because you're going to run out of money pretty quickly.
Yes. I don't see how that 10% bonds is going to be able to outpace inflation.
Yeah. Okay, so what is your wealth gap?
Actually, go back. That's something. I just want to jump back there. If you not you're moving over to the right, but if you look down, the longevity risk for something like that. So while we might think, oh, that 99% looks pretty cool, but the biggest risk in retirement, there's plenty of risks that we face in retirement. There's market risk, there's elder abuse risk, there's health risk, there's frailty risk, all sorts of inflation risk, all kinds of risks that we face in retirement. But the biggest risk of all is longevity risk, and that longevity risk is an exponential multiplier to all the other risks. So while we think it's great that we want to live a long life and have a robust health and things like that, the longer we live, the more risk we face, and that really shows up here as you go downwards. Let's say you live another 10 years after that. Well, your safe 99% probability of success has just dropped down to 14%.
Yeah. Because the money's not growing, right? So as soon as it lasts for a while, but then once you kind of reach the end of it, it starts, that's it.
Right. So if we move back to this, you were talking about the 50-50, 60-40. As you face, if you're facing a longer retirement period, it holds up better because you do have that growth exposure with the equities.
100%.
Anyway, sorry. I thought that this was an interesting graph, and it took a second for it to make its way through my thick skull.
No, that's good. Okay, so now we come to the point where we can now figure out what is your wealth gap. If you did your 4% calculation, okay, then what you need, right? You have your current investments. You know how much you need to get to, right? And there's two ways you could fill that gap. You could fill it with savings and investment growth. You could fill it with maybe selling your law practice. Now, I would caution you that the selling of a law practice is challenging. So I wouldn't rely on that. It's good to have both. That can be a nice supplement. Really, the bulk of closing that wealth gap should come from your savings and investment growth. And then the law firm sale can be the cherry on top. That's kind of the way I like to look at it, because you may not get what you expect to get from your law practice if you are to sell it. And selling it is tough. It's tough work. It can be done, though, and we're going to show you how. So let's talk about that. Your firm, assessing your law firm's value and exit options. So this is something that we help a lot of our clients with. Many attorneys don't have a succession plan yet. Maybe you haven't even thought about it. You're young, that's okay, but we find a lot of law firm owners, even later in life, have never put together a succession plan. A lot of reasons why. It's just not a priority. It's complex to think about. You're too busy to deal with it. And maybe there's some uncertainty about the future. You're not really sure what's going to happen next. Well, you could potentially sell your practice, and there's three kind of main avenues for selling a law firm. An internal transition is where you would sell your practice to somebody within the firm. Think about a partner, maybe an associate who shows really great promise, who's going to get promoted to partnership and then kind of take over from there. An external transition would be selling to an outside party, a different law firm, maybe a competitor, maybe another law practice looking to expand into your practice area. There are a lot of folks looking to buy law practices these days, actually. It's becoming more of a thing. It's a great way for a law firm owner to kind of accelerate the growth of their practice by purchasing an existing practice. And the last one is kind of a hybrid. We call it merger and practice continuation. This really works well for solo firms or small firms where it's, one lawyer and maybe a few support staff. And this is where you're going to basically go join a bigger firm as part of your succession plan, right? You're going to sell to the bigger firm, you go be a part of their practice, work with your clients, and then kind of slowly phase out in a nice kind of structured fashion. That's a nice, less risky way to go about it in many ways. So exit planning can really help you in a lot of ways. Even if you never plan to actually sell your practice, you should be thinking about your firm through an exit planning lens. Exit planning can help you make more money now because you are solving issues in your business that are going to help it grow. The number one issue that exit planning solves is business independence. And that's the biggest problem. The biggest problem with selling any kind of professional services firm is that the business usually depends heavily on the owner. And that's the thing we want to solve primarily. The next thing is reducing risk. It can help you reduce risk. And we're not talking about, like insurance kind of risks, but like anything that can interrupt your business. If you're the business owner and it depends on you, what happens if you get sick? Who's going to meet with the clients? Who's going to do the legal work? Right? So that's a huge risk. Exit planning can help you grow the business because if you're solving these problems, you're going to naturally be growing the business. And obviously, we want to make more money in the future by potentially selling your practice as well. Why should every law firm owner prepare for exits? Unexpected events, maximizing your firm's value, and reducing owner dependence. Those are kind of the top 3 things we want to fix. So let's talk about it. And exit planning simply is good business strategy. It's not all about getting you out of the business. But if you build a business that you could exit from, that's transition ready, as we call it, you're going to have a great business that you really enjoy. Let's talk about business valuation. How do we know what a law firm is worth? Well, let's talk about it. 85% of the average business's value is what we call intangible, meaning we can't touch it. It's not something we can physically see or measure. Let's think about NVIDIA. How much is NVIDIA worth now? 4 trillion, something like that?
Multiple trillions.
Is NVIDIA worth 4 trillion because they have $4 trillion worth of actual physical assets? No. Most of that is intangible capital. It's the market's value, how the market perceives the value of the company to be. Well, the same thing applies to small businesses too. And the pushback I get from a lot of law firm owners who say their firm doesn't have any value, and they're right in terms of physical value. It doesn't have physical assets, but you do have value. And here are the main components. And the majority of your value is intangible. And here are the main components of that intangible value: structural capital, human capital, customer capital, and social capital. This right here, this is the value of your business. How strong these pieces are is how valuable your business is. Your structural capital is your systems and SOPs, your processes. Can someone pick up where you left off? Your human capital are your people. Have you invested in your people? Do you have a really strong team? Do people really know everything that's going on, their skills and experience, their institutional knowledge? That's extremely valuable. Your customer capital is next. How loyal are your customers to the brand? How loyal are your clients? Do you have repeat clients? Do clients keep coming back? Will the clients stay if you leave? And lastly is your social capital. How strong is the brand apart from you? Are referral partners and strategic partners loyal to the brand versus you? How strong is your marketing presence? If you have a great website that gets really great traffic and great leads, that's really valuable, right? All of that is part of your social capital. Your goodwill in the community, that's all part of your social capital. So this is what you have to sell. This is it. This is the value of your business right here.
Well, the good news is that there are systems and very well-defined pathways towards addressing all of these questions,
100%.
right?
And this gives you a really concrete framework for how you build value in your business. Work on these things, work on making these things stronger, and you'll have a stronger business, a more valuable business, and a business you enjoy more because it'll run better and it'll grow more.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, how do we determine the value of a business without getting too much in the weeds? It's a multiple of earnings generally. Okay, so generally when we look at the value of a business, we're looking at a multiple of earnings. So this is the formula. And we're not going to get too deep into math here. There's three parts, okay? Profit on the left side is, EBITDA, if you're a economics nerd like me and Jim, basically means earnings or profit. Okay, so profit is key, is part one. You can control profitability by growing the business, by creating predictable cash flow. The second piece of the equation is a multiple. Now, the private market is what determines the multiple. Okay. There's a range of multiples that companies sell for. And so the private market puts a value on your company as a multiple of earnings. So let's say your company has $1 million in earnings and the multiple that the market would value it at is 10 times a million, your company is worth 10 million. Now, the multiple in the marketplace is a range of multiples. We don't determine what the range is. The market determines what the range is. It might be anywhere from 1 to 10, right? But you can control where you are in that range by controlling the strength of your intangible capital. So if you have a poorly run business without any systems, without a great team that's really super dependent on you, you're going to be on the low end of the multiple range.
Mm-hmm.
If you have a really strong business with really great systems, you could take a 3-month vacation and the business wouldn't skip a beat. You're going to be on the high end of the multiple range. So really simple framework, but it really works well. To illustrate a little bit further, most of what we're going to see probably in the market is like a bell curve distribution. Businesses with low intangibles and high risk are going to be on the low end of the multiple range. Most are probably going to be somewhere in the middle. Businesses that have really strong intangible capital, really low risk, are going to be on the high end of the multiple range, what we would call best in class. So there's two main components of value: attractiveness and readiness. And if you master both, you're going to have a very valuable law firm that runs really well. Attractiveness is how an outside investor would view your business. It's a great exercise to take a step back and think, how would an outside investor look at, how would a Shark Tank person, actually, you know what? No joke. This is a great ChatGPT exercise. If you've been using ChatGPT a lot with your business, ChatGPT knows your business pretty well. Go into ChatGPT and ask it, if I was on Shark Tank and you were the sharks, how would you look at my business? See what it says. I've done it. It's a fun exercise. So that's component one. And then readiness. Readiness. How ready is the business to transition? Is the business independent of the business owner? How ready is the owner to transition? Is there a strong succession plan in place? That's the other component.
I think a lot of times that's one of the biggest hurdles, the first hurdles we help law firm owners overcome. The nobody can do it like I can do it perspective. Yep. And it's, maybe you're a kick butt lawyer, and nobody has the same negotiation skills or the courtroom skills that you do. But a lot of law firm owners we've helped overcome that initially, like feel handcuffed because they can't pass off to other attorneys in their firm, or find anybody that can do it quite as good as they can. So what are some ways that they can think about that?
Yep. Huge. Okay. So here's what to avoid, and here's what we want to fix. And Jim kind of alluded to some of these already. What I call the top 5 value killers for law firms. Number 1, owner dependence. That's number 1. That's biggest of all. The business is too dependent on you. The second big thing is customer concentration. We don't see this with a lot of like consumer-based law firms, but more like your business law firms who serve corporate clients. We had one law firm owner client who one of his clients represented 65% of his business. That's a big problem, because if that client walks away, there goes your business. Lack of documentation. You really need to have your SOPs and systems written down. That's your intellectual property. That's a big part of your value. Retention of key people. That goes back to human capital. Your people are a really valuable part of your business. They know your business. They've built your business. And they're having a written business plan. So many law firms don't have anything written down. So many businesses. We need to have some kind of written business plan. It doesn't have to be complex. It can be just one page. We've got to have goals and things written down on paper or on a Google Doc. Okay, last but not least, and then we'll get you out of here early, retirement readiness on a personal level. Getting emotionally, mentally, and personally, and maybe even spiritually prepared to transition to your next chapter. It's a really difficult thing to go from business owner to retired. It's a really big, and especially as a law firm owner, because your identity can be so tied up in who you are and what you do, and it's natural. It's most of your life. Most of your life is spent doing what you do. It's a huge shift.
I was just talking to a gentleman this past weekend. He turned 70 at the end of the year, and he's finally going to retire. And guess what he's going to do as soon as he retires?
What's that?
He is opening a mediation firm.
Okay.
Yeah, right.
Yep. Cool. So, it's like in your DNA, it's like, it's hard to get away from. But, we want to really challenge ourselves to think. Now, here's why this is really important. Believe it or not, 75% of business owners who sell their businesses regret the decision afterwards. There's a lot of reasons for this. One of the biggest reasons, I think, is you're not going to get monetarily what you want out of the sale of your firm versus continuing to own it and getting that flow of income.
Mm-hmm.
We have a client we're working with right now who is bringing on a partner and thinking through how he's going to sell a partnership stake to his partner. And he's like, so let's say it's 25%. I'm going to sell 25% of my business to my partner. And, let's say it's going to be maybe like a 2x multiple, like 2 times earnings.
Mm-hmm.
And that's kind of what has been in his situation, because he did a valuation and I think it was like 2 to 3 times earnings.
Mm-hmm.
But then it's like, okay, from that point on, 25% of my profit is going to go to this other partner. Do I really want to do that? That's a huge hit. Yes, it is.
But so we're talking about here business owners who regret selling, and this 100%. I'm going to sell the entire firm, cash in, and go put my toes in the sand. Or, what we hear a lot from law firm owners is that, I don't want to sell my firm. I don't want to ever really retire. I want to be able to work a couple of hours a week and continue to get all that residual income. So a way to think about it, and I'm thinking specifically maybe the next time we talk to this client, is by selling a bit of your firm to a successor, next generation, you're locking in that person that you want to be the face of that firm, right? Because if you keep 100% ownership and you just keep going and going until you fall over on your desk when you're 99 years old, you don't have that commitment from the next generation. They can go somewhere else. They can start their own thing. But if you sell a piece of your firm, then you're locking that person in. This is your firm now, and you can still retain partial ownership and continue to get that residual income moving forward.
Yep. Yeah. So there's a lot of logistical reasons why it still may make a lot of sense. But financially, unless you're not going to get a huge payday the way you would if, you started an IPO and took it to market.
Yeah, no,
it's a different thing.
Different beast completely.
So here are a couple reasons why people regret selling their business, selling their law firm. They don't have any personal goals or objectives. There's a loss of identity and purpose after the sale. They have perhaps unmet financial expectations. That's a result of not doing really good financial planning. They have concerns over employee welfare. This can be actually really real. They're concerned about how their employees are being treated by the new ownership. And then number 5 is kind of a conglomeration of all of them, just generally not planning for what happens next, right? What am I doing Monday through Friday, 9 to 5?
Will my spouse want me in the house that much?
That's very fair, because sometimes they don't want you there. They're like, get out of here. You got to go back to the office. So some ways that you can maximize your personal readiness. Start with purpose. Think broadly. Okay, if you were not a law firm owner, who would you be? What is your identity outside of being a lawyer and a business owner? Redefine your why. Create a role for yourself post-retirement. Right? What is your role in life, in business? Think about like Bill Gates, right? Retired from Microsoft. But he retired from Microsoft to a different role in life, and involvement with the Gates Foundation. And, he really carried, so this is kind of interesting because Microsoft's kind of like purpose statement was something along the lines of to make technology accessible to everyone, right? And so he kind of carried that same mission into the Gates Foundation work in wanting to give more economic access, healthcare access to more people, like promoting more access to these things to everyone in the world, right? So it's interesting, right? How can you take what you're passionate about in lawyering and in business ownership to maybe somewhere else? A big part of maximizing your personal readiness is getting your legal and operational house in order in your business, in your personal life, ensuring financial independence for yourself. Don't sell without a post-sale life plan. And actually, there are exit coaches and retirement coaches who can help you think through this. Maybe you need to engage with somebody like a life coach or a therapist who can really help you dig deep and ask some of those deep questions on identity and purpose. It'd be a great time to do that. It's a time of reinvention. Okay, so what's next? Here's some ideas for you. Life after exit, things you could do. Optimizing your health. It could be a great time to really get more serious about your health. Pursuing wellness, earning a degree or certification, build a thought leadership platform. Maybe you're going to be, write a book or do speaking engagements or, something, right? How are you going to now leverage all the knowledge and expertise that you've built up? Working on your personal branding. You could start some kind of consulting practice, right? Exploring global travel, investing in your legacy, philanthropy, reconnecting with loved ones, and finding deeper purpose. Just a few ideas for you. There's a lot of things you could do, right? I think it's easy for us as business owners to really just become so immersed in what we're doing and forget that there are more important things in life, especially as it relates to our families.
Amen.
Okay. So we like to say there are three legs of the stool when it comes to retirement planning for law firm owners. There's the financial, which we talked about at the beginning. There's the business, getting your business ready, thinking about what are your business succession options. And then there's the personal, making sure that you're personally ready for that next stage of life. And you want to develop your professional advisory team. It takes a whole team. If you're an owner of a sizable law practice, it takes a team of people helping you to get all of these things put together and put in place and executing on these things. You need a financial planner. You need an investment advisor. You need your CPA and tax planner to get on board and think about this with you. You may need a business advisor who can help you think through succession and exit, and your bookkeeper or CFO as well. Now, the good news is we can fill almost all of these roles for you.
Mm-hmm.
And we can be your advisory team to help you get through that transition and get ready for it. Even if you're not really planning to transition, getting ready for it so that you have the option. And maybe you have some folks who've already filled some of these roles. Great. We will work with your existing team members and fill in the gaps where they may be. So if that is something you would be interested in, all you have to do is text us at 859-291-9879, and I'll send you the link to schedule an intro call meeting with us. We'll then do a discovery meeting. If it's a good fit, in our discovery meeting, we'll ask a lot of questions. We'll get to know you. We'll figure out what are your goals, what are your challenges, and we will put together a one-page, well, sometimes it's 2 pages, custom business and wealth game plan for you.
I've never seen it one page, Darren. It's never been one page.
Never quite been one page, yeah. But we'll give you some real specific, actionable things that you can do to get yourself ready, to get your business, your financial, your personal all aligned and on track. And then that can also form the foundation for where we get started and where we work together if you decide you want to work with us.
Well, the good news with the game plan, Darren, is that the way we construct them, and I mean, you really do the heavy lifting on these things, is it really is a list of actionable. Step 1, do this. Step 2, and you can take it and implement it yourself. If you decide that, I'm not ready for the commitment, or want to work with somebody on this, I think I can, DIY it myself, and a lot of people can. It is a very, very specific roadmap, step by step along the way.
Yeah. So, one of the things that people have said they like about working with us is we're real specific and practical and down to earth, like step by step. Let's do the things. And I believe in that because the number one ingredient for success in business is execution. and that is getting things
Mhm.
done. That's it. We can have a plan. We can have a great plan all day long. Woohoo. But if we are not executing and getting things done and getting things put into place, it doesn't matter. We've got to get things done. And that's what having a team around you helps to accomplish, so that you can offload these things. You can have people do these things for you. That's
Mhm.
where it really becomes helpful. Yeah. Great. So I don't see any questions. And even if there were questions, I wouldn't know where to find them. This has been our first live stream. How exciting. We'll do another one of these next month. You can join us then. And hopefully we'll be so much better at it. But thank you for joining us if you've been on the call. And if you have questions, you want to chat afterwards, save that number and just send us a text. It's as easy as that. And we'll chat. So thanks for being here.
Thanks, Darren.
Yeah, thank you, Jim. All right. We'll see you.